No, Michelle, I'm super excited about today. I've been looking forward to our conversation since we last met, just because we had such a good first conversation. I was like, I can't wait to have a podcast to be able to share it with everybody. But how is things out in Vegas?
Wonderful. It's a little cold, which is weird, but good.
Yeah, good deal. No, it's warming up in Tennessee, so summer is quickly approaching.
Very nice.
Michelle, such an honor to have you on and to talk about your work, your story. You've got multiple books out, and I was looking a little more into your leadership coaching as we were leading up to this. And there's some things I want to ask you about because you do some things that are different than a lot of other business and organizational coaches. I mean, you even work with young athletes and students who are high achievers and wanting to do some big things. And so that's one of the things I'm going to ask you about. But to start, Michelle, I would love for you just to talk a little bit about your background because you've spent a lot of time in the hospitality industries, and it's really kind of how you framed a lot of your coaching. I mean, and when in Vegas, I mentioned that's a huge area of hospitality, but tell your story of just how you got started in your growth path and how that's led you to being able to consult and help others be the best that they can be and organizations be the best that they can be for their employees.
Yes. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of my background. Like you said, I have a very heavy background in the hospitality industry. I started from the ground up, like any hotelier, old school hotelier would. And I got to a point in my career where I realized that the leadership styles that I was being exposed to was not necessarily my cup of tea. And I've always looked at situations from the perspective of, all right, if this is not what I would choose, what can I do differently? And I got to a point in my career where I realized if I stay in it, then I can make the impact that I'm hoping to make. I need the autonomy to be able to call the shots and do things differently. I'm a strong believer in leaving the world behind better than I found it. And in that realization, I decided I was ready to fly solo. Throughout my career, there were very specific roles that I wanted to gain experience in. It wasn't necessarily checking boxes related to titles. Title is not so much something that drives me, but really the experience behind what you're touching and how you are moving people to action. My job for many years was to turn around underperforming operations. And the truth is that, yes, process is extremely important, but the people that drive that process has to be at the forefront. So how do we inspire people to move them to action, coming from a place of providing authentic service? One of the things that drives incredible hospitality is really creating those memorable experiences. And I believe that it's not just about the experience for the guest or the patron if you're in a gaming property, but really for the employee. That's where it starts. And if we're able to create a wonderful and outstanding work environment, then people don't want to leave. And then that also translates onto the floor. What are we doing for those that we serve and how are we doing it? So that's kind of where my career went. As I'm going through different projects and turning things around and, making sure that numbers are where they need to be, but also inspiring people, I got to a point where I would get the same question over and over, like getting to the end of a project and leaders saying, okay, great. Now, how do I keep working with you? Once you exit this, then what happens next? And I
Best
started,
compliment you could get, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
started exploring coaching on a one-on-one basis and again, bringing not only my operational experience and human resource experience to the mix, but also drawing from my own experience of being burned out and being in an industry that operates 24/7 where you don't get weekends off. And even if you're off technically, you still get the phone calls. You still have to move the needle, jump in, do the thing. So bringing that into the mix to approach leadership from a holistic approach, right? From a holistic standpoint where everything needs to align if we really want to live a fulfilling life, if we really want to impact people in a way that makes sense to you without losing yourself. But at the same time, you're making the change that you want to see in your immediate community, because that eventually is going to trickle into everything else that we do. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating how every time we look, and actually I just had an author on a couple weeks ago, and he has a book called Every Player is Bigger Than the Program. And it just talks about the importance of people. And every time we talk about systems and processes, it's all great. You need those too. Even Nick Saban, I bring him up as, Alabama coach. He talks about systems, but everyone always comes back to the people and how you can't do the systems and you can't operate without the right people in place. And you just said everything needed around there, keeping people motivated and happy, and culture. How do you keep that strong so that your business goals are, you can accomplish and achieve those? And so it just seems like there's this constant reminder that's needed, though, is that the people are the most important, and you need to pour as much energy or more into them as an organization. I love that you talk about that. I'm curious to know just another question, because again, hospitality, I just finished reading Unreasonable Hospitality.
Nice.
Have
Yeah.
you read that book?
Great book.
Learned a lot from it, just, as someone that's not in that industry, but it still can apply to so many things. But that was probably one of my favorite books I've read over the past year. Just again, learning about the processes and all of that, but the importances of different things. Michelle, talk a little bit about 360 Impact, because you've got the book behind you, I see, and we've got the book on the Books4Guys website, but you've created this. How did you put it together? How did you put it together, and what's the main criteria that you coach on, or formula that you teach from it?
So I'm going to give you a bit of background so things line up and make sense. Forever and ever, a lot of people within my circle or my network had kind of planted the seed, like, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I'm like, I know nothing about that industry. Like, I don't even know if people would like what I write or how I write. And when, the planets align and things happen when they have to happen, I believe in that. And I was invited to participate in an anthology. 25 women. The first book was titled Becoming an Unstoppable Woman. And I'm like, whoa, that's like, it's big, unstoppable woman, right? And I figured, okay, what do I offer and how do I learn from this? Because this for me would be like the stepping stone, or like trying to understand how the industry works. Are people going to enjoy my way of writing, and so on? So fast forward, I ended up participating in 7 of those, of that same series, all different topics. And I got to that point where I was like, okay, this is it. You've tested this enough. It's time to step out of your comfort zone. And when I went into starting to think about what would 360 Impact look like, the title came to me right away. It's impact. Impact has to be it, right? But then I also believe that impact is not just one way. It's a cycle, right? Again, the holistic approach comes into play. And what I struggled with the most was that I was like, leadership is my love language, right? It's what I do. It's what I know, and I know it well, and I can share the stories, and it's real. And I don't believe in throwing anyone under the bus or any brands under the bus, because again, I take the learning from that experience. So how do I create something where leaders can go to, where it becomes like a Swiss Army knife, where you have a little bit of everything, but it's impactful enough where you get to the core of it without a lot of words, and like people don't have time to read, right? And where you are able to not only work on your leadership style itself and start making changes for your organization or the team culture or the direct team, like if you manage a department, but also it starts with growing yourself. And that became a big challenge. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, do I write a leadership book? Do I write a personal development book? Like, what is this going to look like? And I had major writer's block, like major. And eventually it clicked. I connect the dots. So what 360-degree impact does is it breaks it down into 6 different pillars. So we start with growth, then we move to purpose, and I talk about collaboration, and I talk about what gratitude looks like and how it can move mountains in the corporate world. It can move mountains when you go to the grocery store, right? So the approach that I took in those 6 pillars is there is a core explanation or value or context related to the topic, but then there's a personal application, and then there is an organizational application. Because I figured at that point when I was writing it, a lot of my clients were not necessarily people that were holding leadership positions, right? I was working with women that had been a homemaker for 20 years and their kids were going off to college and they had no idea what they wanted to do with their life and what's next. And they were still struggling with the same things that leaders in the corporate world were struggling with. So when I was able to identify that, I'm going to give them this, and then I'm going to do this. So if you don't want to read the part that belongs to or specifically talks about how to apply this in a professional setting, you're still getting enough. You're still getting the core of it. And then from there, and I don't know if we want to jump into the rest of the books, but I'll give you a brief of what that looks like. I figured there has to be steps to the process, right? So where do you level up from there? 360-degree impact is the foundation. And then from there, what happens next? And that's when stretch came into play. Because many times 360 was the mirror. This is what this looks like. We live in a world that is go, go, go all the time. We forgot how to connect. We forgot how to have these conversations where it's not like uptight, right? Hospitality is a very uptight industry and we're very proper all the time, especially when you're dealing with luxury brands. And everyone still deals with the same things, right? So after you look at the mirror and you realize, what is a new standard that you want to hold yourself to? Then something's going to stop you. And it's really usually like fear of something, right? What's that excuse? So what stretch does is like it takes you a little bit further and allows
Love
you
the
to
title.
evaluate like what are those excuses that will typically hold you back, but in a way where the language is very simple. It's not poetic. It's not like difficult to comprehend. It's like we're having a conversation. So what's happening in this process is I'm creating an ecosystem where you could read one book on its own, but then if you want more, this is what comes next. And then if you want more, this is what comes next. And if all you need is awareness, that's the next one that comes out in June. It's called Pressure. And it's really, tapping into, we're going to unveil this and we're going to take a look at it. And there's going to be no anesthesia. May not fix anything, but it's going to give you language, right? So I would say this, from the moment I started writing to now, my writing has changed a lot. I am less uptight. I am a lot more comfortable with having a conversation with the reader. And then on the other hand, I'm still being authentic to where I come from, which is hospitality. And in hospitality, we create experiences. And I strongly believe that there's a way to create an experience in a book, where the reader can be slowed down long enough, where you can notice things, where you can think. And it's not a workbook, but you have spaces where you can actually start reflecting and thinking about things and going into these places that normally you wouldn't go, right? And if you want a coaching experience, we can talk about that. But this is a good place to start.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I was laughing when you said writer's block. I get writer's block just writing an email. So what you've been able to do in creating multiple pieces of work now with more to come is very impressive. And I love too that you talk about your books aren't they're business and coaching, but there's personal development to it as well, and you can apply it in many different areas of life outside of work. But Michelle, one question I really wanted to ask you as I was thinking about this, because you talked about your experience with leadership and you thought, hey, I don't really like that approach. I want to figure out a different way. In your coaching and the way that you work with people, do you think there are different types of leadership styles that can be successful in the hospitality industry specifically? Or is there one that you think is better than the other, as far as like how their approach is with people and processes that you try to coach people towards? Or is it, can someone be successful doing it differently, but the same principles of trying to elevate and be better, it's okay to have different styles. Like, what's your thoughts on just the style of leadership and what's successful and what's not?
I think that the best style of leadership is a human centered leadership. And what that means is not just you are embracing being human while you are leading someone, but that also includes leading yourself, meaning you don't lose who you are, right? If there are specific things that are important to you in the way you communicate, stick to that. Can you enhance your communication style by learning how your message will land, by learning how it will land for every person separately? Because not everybody takes information the same way. Not everybody processes that information the same way, because we all have different background, different experiences. We've been exposed to different situations. But if I have to sum it up, the I think that the best leader is the leader that is grounded in their values, who they are, and where you can apply empathy, where you can lead with a soft hand and a hard hand at the same time, because you will need one or the other depending on what's in front of you. And at the end of the day, that applies to any industry. It's not just hospitality.
Yeah. And I love how you break that down because I'm sitting here thinking of me personally, just the leaders I've worked with, and I've worked with some who I don't think their approach was right at all, and I don't think anyone thought it was. But where I'm at now, I love the leadership. I love their approach of how can I help, but if they ask how they can help while also leading with authority to where we know and we want to follow. So I think it's very impressive when people who are leading have that just charisma that you want to follow, and they do lead with a strong hand, but it's not one that you said you mentioned earlier, calling someone out in front of people or calling a brand out, like that never seems to be the right path. But being able to lead strongly while also be there to help and be approachable. And there's a fine balance there. And you're right. I think that's why the work you're doing, it's always needed. There's new leaders that are coming up every day, and everyone needs a good coach, and everyone needs to learn how to be better. And so I love the conversation on leadership because I read a lot about leaders. And obviously I love talking with people who help coach. And I think everyone needs a coach. And probably the best leaders, they need coaching, constant things change. So they've got to change their approach, and people change and generations change. People are handle things differently. So I'm sure there's no shortage of situations that you go into and you're like, oh, this is a little bit different than it looked like last year or the year
Never
before.
a dull moment. I can
Yeah.
assure you that.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I wanted to ask you this. It kind of just shifts gears just a little bit. And I mentioned it in the first part of the podcast was the focus on kids. Where did you get the inspiration or the, I guess, motivation to work with kids as they grow? And, again, they're the next generation that's going to be leaders, here. And so, but I haven't talked to anyone who focuses on kids that much. Why did you decide to do that?
So you said it. They're the next generation of leaders. That's it, right? So in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, all you hear is this next generation doesn't get this, doesn't want to do that, they're lazy. Well, wait a minute. Number one, we need ownership. Who raised those kids? All right. I'm a mom of three. And my kids have an 8-year gap. So I have a 20-year-old and I have 11, almost 12 years old. And they are the next generation of leaders. And everything at home is a lesson, to the point that sometimes they'll be like, Mom, not another leadership lesson. And I'm like, that's okay. It's my job. And as I go through experiences with my own kids, I realized, are we training the sports coaches, for example? In many cases, they are parents. In many cases, they don't have proper training, but they come from playing the sport themselves on a collegiate level, so they understand coaching and all the things, right? Are we training them to communicate with these kids? And then if we take it a step further, are we training the kids how to communicate? Are we training the kids how to be leaders in their own worlds? And I don't know if I can tell you like how this happened, where I decided, it is, I think it was some sort of light bulb that went off in my head. And I thought, wait a minute, what if we started teaching these kids, giving them the tools that they need now, that schools, because everyone is so busy, might not be really pausing and going there? But the truth is, they still deal with imposter syndrome. They still deal with not knowing how to communicate. They still deal with not understanding how to set goals and procrastination. And yes, in their world, it may look a little different. But I figured, how do we not, I don't want to say the word dilute, because I'm not diluting the message, but I'm adapting the message in a way where the same things that adults are benefiting from, if we're able to transfer this into these young minds, middle school, high school ages, we're going to prepare them way better. So in my quest of making it a better world, let's start now. So I started having conversations with either coaches or I started in sports, right? Different authorities in the Las Vegas Valley. Like, what do you deal with? Like, what do you see in the kids? And I did my research and very quickly realized like this is really, really needed, because you think sports psychology, right? Or you think mental performance. There are two very specific avenues. But are we really injecting the extra layer of communication, leading yourself, being a leader, stepping up, knowing when to speak up, understanding the difference between what's right from wrong, beyond what mom and dad explained, but being able to identify those situations with the proper emotional intelligence? Right. So I think that when I was able to connect all these dots, I figured, wait a minute, this is something. And no one else out there is like sharing all of it, right? The cognitive behavioral therapy and the neuroscience behind how we can change behavior. And then at the same time, how do we show up? That's leadership in a nutshell, right? How do you show up? And when I wrote Stretched, I figured this is the language that the kids need. And that's what propelled me to write Stretch Junior, which is, again, it's in their language with their problems. What does this look like? And at the same time, create an experience.
Yeah.
Many parents are busy and they're tired at the end of the day. And how do you have better, more solid conversations at the dinner table? What if you're both reading the same book in your own language? But what if we can go there? What if we can bring that there, where mom and dad can be vulnerable, talking about some of these things, right? And being more open. Our generation is much more open, and give the kids the language to be able to be more open themselves without thinking there's something wrong with me.
This is such a great conversation because Michelle, literally earlier today, I was interviewing a coach and we were talking about this exact thing. Because one of my questions to him was, we look at the next generation and a lot of times our initial thought is, oh my gosh, we're screwed. These kids, what are they doing? But on the flip side, we also see how smart they are and how much they can do when they're led properly. They have all these tools and they pick up on things so much quick and they can do incredible things. And so we were talking about just how one day we're like, they're going to kill it. They have so many amazing things and opportunities. Who knows what they can accomplish? And then we have this other pool where we're like, oh my gosh. But you talk about the exact thing of getting in there and leading them the right way so that they can grow and be leaders when they get to that point. I think that is just such an important thing and such important work that you're doing. You said you talked with coaches. When you work with kids, is it teachers and coaches that or parents that recommend or reach out to you for their kid, or do you have certain kids that, I don't know, reach out on their own for coaching? How does that work?
So obviously, not necessarily the kid would reach out on their own. And if that was the case, I would go back to the parent. But this is how it works. I have several partnerships with it started with different sports clubs, right? Kids that are high achievers, that they really have their mind in the game and they want to do this. They still have school, they still have all these other priorities. And then in speaking with other parents in my different circles, my daughter just is, amazing in basketball, but she just had an injury and she's having a lot of trouble coming back from it. That's how I would work with a one-on-one kid virtually, for example. Or you have a high achieving kid that is wonderful with everything that they do, but they're super quiet and they haven't found their voice yet. And you would label that kid as shy, and maybe it's not really shy. It's like, again, finding their voice, giving them that confidence that they need. Or, so it varies. It started in sports, more from a mental performance standpoint and leadership and leading on the ice, off the ice, on the field, off the field. But then also it started like expanding into parents that will reach out and say, look, my kid is going through this, having trouble, connecting with other kids at school. Is there something you can do? Let's talk. Let's see where this goes. Some of them are resistant at first, but I turn it fairly quickly. And I have clients that I've worked with for months and months on end. And maybe they come back to me a year later because now they're in their senior year of high school and they're preparing to step into the college world and what that's going to look like. So now they have different things, different challenges ahead of them. So we focus on all of that too. And at the same time, it's important to me what I was saying earlier, which is preparing them for that corporate world, preparing them for the real world. And although I'm not going to necessarily share blandly how I would share with an adult certain things, I do know what they're going to need and I do know what they're going to face. So injecting that as part of either the program, if they're going through a program, or the customized type of session, I still think it's important. They're getting tools that adults are paying to get.
Yeah. Well, that's what you said the word customization. We were talking about this just the other day. We have a 4-year-old niece, and I know that's way young, but she's very smart. And their parents are struggling with what can we do for her other than, because if she just goes through normal school, she's very bored. But you can tell she just wants more and needs more. And I wish there were more ways that kids could have more of an individualized approach when it comes to growing and educating and such, because some kids can handle more and they want more even when they go through struggle. That was one of my questions I was going to ask. Is every student or child that you work with, is it always a struggle of something they're going through, or are there circumstances to where they just need more challenge, or they're seeking something else to learn and gravitate towards? That's kinda what I see. Some kids, they just need more and more challenge, and that's a good thing, but a lot of them don't get it, and then sometimes I think it leads to maybe bad choices because 'cause you're just bored.
Yeah, for
But do
sure.
you see a lot of that too?
So in many cases, it's those are the high achieving kids that are looking for what's the next level? How do I level up? And what does leveling up really look like for me, which is not the same for everybody else. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a challenge they're dealing with, but maybe they want to learn how to communicate in a different way, right? Or how to kill presentations at school because they're part of the, I don't know, President's Association, whatever that looks like to them. It's not just the struggle, the challenge, or the struggle, but it can also be how do they want to challenge themselves to continue to level up, right? Just like adults. Adults don't just come to me when they're struggling with something. And sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm bored. I want more. What does more look like to me? I have no idea. I feel stuck. The classic answer, I feel stuck. All right, let's unstuck you,
Yeah.
right? And the answers are usually within. They just need some tools or they need to be asked the right questions, right? To poke in the right places to uncover it, to be able to say it out loud in a safe space.
Yeah. I love this because, again, parents and normal coaches, they're busy doing things and sometimes they can't give this extra that a kid needs. And I just think there's what you're doing again is so important. I'm sitting here thinking like, man, we need more Michelles and more coaches out there working with these young people to help them level up because they want to, and how can we customize that and help people get through that? So if you ever expand, Michelle, I'm on board. I'm happy to learn and work with you on that. I just think that is such an important thing and a very amazing thing that you're building and doing, and you probably don't even know the impact you're going to have in the future as you continue to touch more people. But Michelle, I got one last question for you. And again, we've got your book spotlighted on the website. We're going to get the other one spotlighted as well for those interested. But I always ask this question, and I'm always curious to know, what is a book or two that has meant a lot to you personally or professionally? And what's a book or two that you like to recommend to others?
That is a very tough question to answer.
Powerful
You
question.
can't see everything that is behind me or everything that is in my digital devices, but I'm an avid reader and I don't read novels and I stick with something. If I can narrow it down to books are like music. Right? There are days where you feel like listening to rock and roll, and there are days that you feel like listening, or at least for me, listening to something softer. And there are days where you need something that will pump you and energize you. Books are that for me. So I strongly believe that the most impactful books have come to my life in a moment where I needed that read. Two books. One was, and I just said that I don't read novels, so this is going to backfire. One was The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. Old book, but I was in a moment of my life where I needed to see things from a completely different angle. And I thought that was epic. And then the other one was I was at a point in my career, and I tell this story a little bit. I share this story on 360-degree Impact. I was at a point in my career where I was like, okay, what's the next level of leadership? What does that look like? Right. And how do I know? How do I know if I'm there? How do I know what I'm still missing? And that one was The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And he broke it down so clearly where, I felt when I read it, like I'm on level 4 and how do I get to level 5? So those two were impactful at a specific moment in my life. And I think that sometimes the book chooses you.
I love the question because you said it exactly right. The book that has an impact on you, it depends on the time of life, where you're at, what's going on, what influences are out there. So it could change. If we meet again, in 2 years, you might give me a different answer.
Totally.
That's why I asked though. It's an unfair question, but it's a good question.
Yes.
And I haven't read either of those books. I've heard about the John Maxwell one. I have not heard about the other one. So I'm going to add those to my reading list and try and tackle those because I think both of them are something that I'd be interested in knowing more about.
You
But
have to
Michelle,
read between the lines.
yeah, I'm going to read that one. Yeah. But no, Michelle, thank you for taking the time to do this and just sharing more of, again, your story, your background, your mission and purpose that you have and the things you're working to again, put positivity towards and help people with and all at the same time, you're growing and learning too. So I love that, but can't wait to see the impact that you have with your books and your work and we're honored to have you a part of the Books for Guys purpose and mission now too. So we're honored to spotlight your work. But Michelle, keep doing what you're doing. We're cheering you on and can't wait to see the impact that you continue to have with people.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for having me. And I cherish what you do is so important, and I just love it. So congratulations on that work.
Thank you, Michelle.